Land Without a King. Session 4, Serpent Falls Fate Accelerated game. Now, normally we record these as a Google Hangout Live, which we dutifully did last time. However, for some unknown reason, the video did not stream correctly, and after about the first 50 minutes of it, it would lock up or error and crash. Now, I've no idea whether this will eventually be sorted out by YouTube or whether it's something that we can't do anything about. In the meantime, however, since I didn't want to leave a big gap in my Serpent's Fall area and playlist on my YouTube channel, I'm going to record a brief retelling of the story from the viewpoint of myself, Red Dice Diaries, as the GM. Now, we last left our motley collection of heroes, Azuchi, the Stygian medicine man, who believes that it is his destiny, in conjunction with the Kemrian death priest, Haresh Kamani, to reunite the once one nations of Kemria and Stygia. They are accompanied by Gunnar Kron, the Nordic barbarian who, after a lifetime of bloody-handed reaving, witnessed the murder of many women and children and defenceless old people as the Timberwolf tribe laid waste to Azuchi's Stygian clansmates. Seeing this sickened him, and he resolved to mend his ways and seek atonement by helping Azuchi achieve his destiny. They are also joined by the swaggering, flamboyant Captain Benito, once and outcast king of the Serpent Isles, once a great pirate king ruling the outlaw settlements of the Sword Isles. Captain Benito was overthrown by the villainous machinations of his one-time ally, Captain Horningold Blythe, who laid a vicious curse down on Benito intended to kill him. However, Benito's Lemurian blood, the bloodline of the once slaves of the now lost nation of Atlantis, gave him some protection against the curse and twisted its effects. Instead of killing him, he found himself unable to ever sail the seven seas, and only escaped by diving into the ocean and, as luck and fate would have it, washing ashore on the coasts of Stygia, where he was able to make the acquaintance of Azuchi and Gunnar Kron, and in return for their help in dealing with his problem, agreed to help them with their mission. Last session, our party had just saved a village of people on the western coast of Celtia, near the Great Forest, from being abducted by the savage Pictish tribesmen that dwelt in the area. It turned out that these Pictish tribesmen were dealing these people almost like livestock or slaves to the Dark Corsairs, the pirates of one of the many pirate lords of the Sword Isles, a Captain Hannibal Hawkins, one of the people who had supported Horningold Blythe in usurping Benito's position. After defeating Hawkins, they then rescued him from a demon or spirit sent to assassinate him, no doubt after Horningold Blythe had discovered that Hawkins had failed in his mission. In return for this, Hawkins agreed to no longer deal in slaves or with anyone who dabbles in black magic, and in a magnanimous display, Captain Benito returned his ship to him. They then returned the once captive villagers to the smouldering ruins of their village and helped them say goodbye to those they had lost in the raid on their settlement, filling the villagers with hope that with hard work and dedication they could once more build their lives and go forward into a new dawn. However, as the new dawn rises and the party continue their journey northwards, out of Celtia towards the land of Saxony, seeking to travel to the capital of Saxony, Winchester, in the hope that in this more cosmopolitan area they may find someone who knows more about the curse that affects Captain Benito, or perhaps even find someone to help them lift it. They find that, given their dallying in the previous village, and their inability to resupply there due to the raid, that their supplies are running somewhat low, and after a couple of days they are reduced to a few bits of hard tack and a few ship's biscuits that Captain Benito has, best not to ask how long he's had them, in his pocket. Azuchi is ranging up ahead, with his keen eyes scanning as he once did when hunting the savannas of Stygia, looking for supplies, when on the distance in the horizon he sees a wooden palisade or fence surrounding what appears to be a village, judging by the thatched roofs that rise just above the parapets. Thin wisps of smoke drift lazily into the air, no doubt from the promise of hearth fires within the welcoming bounds of the village. So overcome is he by this that Azuchi falls onto his knees, and as the others catch up with him, they hear him say, "Thank the spirits, we've been blessed with a village." Benito, always one to inject a note of sobering reality, says, "Well, yes, that's assuming that the smoke doesn't mean it's another village that has been burnt down." Whilst they're talking about this, Haresh hears a strange, muffling, snorting sound from deep within the boundaries of the nearby forest. Nudging Benito, who quickly draws his sword, they both shout over to Azuchi about the potential danger, and the undergrowth begins to move, trees swaying. Haresh holds up his hands and backs away from the tree line as Azuchi drops into a practiced martial stance, and something strong begins ploughing its way towards the undergrowth very quickly, charging towards them. Azuchi instinctively calls on the familiar spirit of the Komodo dragon. He feels it flow through him, armouring him, causing his skin to take on the texture of fine scales. A huge boar covered in wiry bristles and all tusks smashes out of the tree line, shaking its head briefly as it throws off a bit of foliage, and then prepares to charge our heroes. Benito scrambles up a nearby rocky outcropping while Haresh continues to back away, and Azuchi drops down lower into his stance, preparing to leap if the creature gets near him. However, hearing the sound of Benito scrambling up the rocks, dislodging a few pebbles, the boar turns towards him and charges with astonishing speed towards the rock that he's perched upon. He gives an acrobatic leap onto the back of the huge bristled creature, reaching forward and grabbing the tusks of the beast, and he begins to twist its head to one side, trying it desperately to steer it away from his comrades and prevent further injury. With the creature distracted, Azuchi springs forward. Calling on his martial prowess, he strikes the boar in a weak spot on its skull and delivers a mighty roundhouse kick to the side of its head. There is an extremely loud, almost deafening crack, and the creature ploughs into the ground, neck broken, Benito leaping off it as it slides along, digging a thick furrow in the soft earth beneath it. As this is going on, Haresh has backed up nearly to the tree line, and he becomes aware there's still some slight movement, although, thank goodness, nothing like another giant boar ploughing through the trees. Interested in ever the spirit of inquisitiveness, Haresh begins peeking beyond the tree line, moving a few fronds of foliage out of his way, still remaining cautious, however, and he comes across a small clearing where there is a mossy depression in the ground, naturally formed, and squealing in the midst of it are 5 infant boars. He shakes his head at the senseless loss of it all and returns to the others, gesturing them to follow him. He then leads them back through the trees to where the baby boars are located, feeling a sense of guilt that they may have slain the mother of these creatures, whereas Azuchi, being more used to hunting on the Stygian savannah and raising the young of hunted animals as domestic stock, he looks at the young animals more as potential food or trade stock, whereas both Benito and Haresh seem captivated by the idea of keeping these beasts as some sort of mascot or potential future mounts. Muttering a prayer to the death spirit, Haresh attempts to examine the spirit of the beast. However, it has already fled the dead carcass, animal spirits not tending to linger as long as those of more intelligent creatures. But he does sense an afterimage of anger and maternal instincts. He suggests that they should be on their guard, since something else may have been nearby that had already aroused the mother boar's protective instincts. After a bit of further debate, Benito and Haresh decide to adopt one of the piglets each, and then to take the rest as trade or provisions. Azuchi shakes his head in bewilderment over this sentiment, but reluctantly he agrees before pulling his dagger and beginning to skin, detusk and butcher the body of the dead boar. Gunnar Kron seems entirely bewildered by the argument going on, but then again the Norskens are not known for their love of animals, besides a skin to wear or meat to eat. Benito picks up a couple of the piglets, with Haresh carrying one under his arm. He seems particularly taken with a black piglet with a white spot on its head, and the bewildered Kron, at their request, picks up the other two, shaking his head slightly. Azuchi gives thanks to the spirits above for the bounty of pig flesh and trade that has been brought their way, and they continue their journey towards the village on the horizon. Eventually they arrive near the wooden palisade that has an open gate area. They speculate that it may be designed more to keep animals in and predators out rather than to repel any sort of concerted attack. Gunnar Kron remarks that no real enemy would be kept out by such a flimsy barricade, and they can see numerous small wooden buildings and a central large hall, all with thatched roofs, contained within the palisade. Suddenly, a ragged, malnourished figure bursts from the entrance of the gate, cradling a Hessian sack under one arm. He runs towards them and virtually collapses into Azuchi's arms, saying, I can't, please don't let them get me. And he almost swoons, nearly fainting away as he falls into Azuchi's arms. Benito takes the bag that is toppling from the man's hands and peers inside it. It contains no more than a couple of loaves of bread and some bundles of grain. Benito mutters under his breath, I think I see what's happening here, and takes a step back, still holding the bag, as a unit of soldiers wearing chain shirts and carrying axes begin to march in a lockstep out of the village gate. Thinking quickly, Haresh slips off his black concealing death priest robe and slips it onto the bedraggled villager before the soldiers have time to spot him, and Azuchi moves forward to intercept the emerging soldiers. The Stygian medicine man points off into the distance, hoping to mislead them as to the whereabouts of their suspected quarry. He shouts, a man just ran into those trees carrying a bag. Is that who you're looking for? The commander, a stern figure with ruddy hair, introduces himself as Adelred and says that they are in pursuit of the wanted criminal Duda. Azuchi replies, says, oh well, I think I saw your man running off into the nearby forest. Adelred thanks them and says that they will surely find hospitality and be welcome within the village of Wulfric Ingas, indicating the palisade behind them. Then, his eyes falling upon Kron, says, well, almost all of you will be welcome. Seeing Azuchi's questioning look, he explains that the Northman is not well loved in Saxony, since they have endured many raids at his hand, and the king has indeed recently gone north to crusade against the rising warlords in that harsh, inhospitable land. He describes the Norskens as a plague waiting to sweep away the light of civilization into barbarous darkness. Not disagreeing with them, Azuchi is able to persuade the soldiers and Adelred that Kron no longer considers himself linked with the Norskens that they describe, and he will cause no trouble. Nodding his agreement, Kron turns over his hammers as a symbol of his honour and willingness to be disarmed, and as surety of his conduct. And, with Azuchi vouching for him, Commander Adelred agrees to allow the Norsican into the settlement of Wulfric Ingas. One of Adelred's men, called Deowine, seems extremely not happy about this and takes it very personally. He seems affronted by Aethelred's decision to allow Cron into the village, and makes his objections known, shouting out that the Norskans are murderers and butchers, and cannot be trusted in civilized lands. Aethelred commands his subordinate to be silent, and apologizes to our heroes, explaining that Deowain recently received news that his brother was slain in King Godric's crusade against the Northmen, and he hopes they will understand his attitude and forgive him his outburst, which of course the heroes are more than willing to do. Unable to accompany them at present due to his pursuit of the criminal Duda, Aethelred assigns one of his men, a stubbled fellow by the name of Oed, to escort them inside. Oed nods and leads the heroes into the village as Aethelred's party disappears towards the forest, unaware that they are on something of a wild goose chase. Oed mentions that Lord Wulfric is ill and may not be able to speak to them, but he will take them to the chief's hut anyway. Azuchi, hearing about this illness, mentions that he is a renowned medicine man in Stygia and that he may be able to help, and this seems to perk up Oed's interest in what previously to him had been a routine job and something that was preventing him joining his brothers in potentially glorious combat. As they arrive at the door of the large wooden hut, Oed hammers on it with both his hands, with a sense of urgency in his voice, demands to be let in, saying that he has a medicine man to see Lord Wulfric. A soft female voice responds from the other side of the door, saying that the Lord is much too ill to see any foreigners, no matter what snake oil and charms they may be peddling. It is only when Oed threatens to break down the door that the woman, who he refers to in his impatience as Caelwyn, agrees to let them in. Upon entering the large hall, they can see a bed covered in many furs, where a tall man with a long beard and a wastish, greyish pallor lies as though almost on death's door. A thin, lithe woman with long brown hair stands next to him, and on a table rests a pestle and mortar and a vial containing some sort of clear liquid next to the bed. The woman seems sceptical about Azuchi's abilities, dismissing the heathen magics of savages and saying that they have no need of them in Wulfric Ingas. But she is halted when the weakened Lord Wulfric gestures with a shaking, palsied hand and says that he gives permission for Azuchi to examine him. Azuchi immediately asks what treatment Lord Wulfric has received already regarding his ailment, and Caelwyn indicates the clear solution on the nearby table and says that she has been administering a solution of local river water and medicinal herbs to bring down his temperature and his fever. As she says this, Benito senses a deception, and he notices a look of panic on Caelwyn's face when Azuchi begins examining the tonic. She disguises it expertly and no one else seems to have picked it up, but nevertheless Benito is sure that it was there. However, before he can do anything about it, a huge warrior with black hair and holding an axe, gripped threateningly in one hand, dashes in, throwing the door of the hall open, and in angry tones demands to know what on earth is going on here. Caelwyn speaks to the man, who she refers to as Anlaf and addresses as husband, and explain what is occurring. Again, Benito notices a slight edge of panic and hysteria in her voice, but again she covers it very quickly. Azuchi attempts to speak to Anlaf, explaining calmly that he is attempting to remedy the malady that currently inflicts Lord Wulfric. However, Anlaf seems oddly unwilling to listen to him, and eventually attempts to sucker punch Azuchi, trying to clout him round the face with a mailed fist. But the Stygian martial artist, ever ready against potential threat, is too quick, and rocks back on his feet, dodging the blow before delivering a rapid series of punches that cause the Saxon warrior Anlaf to crumple to the floor in an unconscious heap. Now free of distraction, he lifts a tiny portion of the tonic to his lips and judges it to be mostly sugar water. However, from the tiny amount he tasted, there is an acrid, toxic note lurking beneath the sweetness of the sugar water that his trained taste buds can only just detect. Seeing Azuchi's expression and realising that the game is up, Caelwyn draws a hidden dagger from her belt and holding it out, advises them all to let her go and that no one else needs to get hurt. Leaping forward, the flamboyant Captain Benito attempts to restrain the woman. However, obviously trained for combat, something that Benito was not expecting, she delivers a vicious headbutt to his face, causing him to stagger back, shouting all the while for Azuchi to take her out, with blood pouring from his nostril. Whilst Kron moves to secure the unconscious Saxon warrior and cut off any escape, Benito staggers back, blood dripping out from his hands, clasping his nose. However, not wanting to do the woman serious harm, and lose her only source of information, Azuchi deftly flicks the knife from Kaelwyn's hand with a practised martial arts move, and twists her arm up behind her back, whilst Haresh fetches a note and restrains her. Seeing her husband captured and held by Kron and Oed, and feeling herself restrained by the rope that Haresh has looped around her arms, she breaks down and reveals that her husband Anlaf told her to help him poison Lord Wulfric, or that he would beat her, but that if she did so, the Regent would make them the rulers of the village after Wulfric was dead. Oed informs our heroes that the Regent is the brother of King Godric, a man called Edward Hardcourt, who has been left in charge of the kingdom while Godric is on his crusade to the north, but he has no idea why the Regent would want Wulfric dead. Wulfric has always been a loyal servant of the crown. Kaelwyn protests, saying, I don't know. Anlaf spoke to the Regent, not me. It was all his idea. I couldn't help but get involved. He threatened me. And she attempts to plead for leniency and offers proof of what she is saying by telling them to search Anlaf's belt pouch. When Gunnar Kron does so, he finds a red seal in the shape of a stylized spear. Oed peers at it and confirms that the spear is Aelfgar, symbol of the Harcourt family. Azuchi has been ministering during this to Lord Wulfric and says that he can help him, but it will take a couple of days for the build-up of toxins and poison to leave his system. In a weak, shaking voice, Lord Wulfric thanks them and says that they must sleep in his own hall as guests of honour. He orders Oed to take Anlaf and Kaelwyn from his sight and to have them confined under guard. Haresh approaches the Lord and in reconciliatory tones speaks to him about the criminal Duda. He explains that the man was starving and even shows the meagre contents that were inside the satchel. Wulfric sighs and explains that recently the Regent has been squeezing them for more and more taxes, and that he's honour bound to obey the ruler of Saxony, meaning that he has to ask more from his people and for them to dig ever deeper, even though he knows that he is asking a great deal. Saying that whilst he cannot tolerate crime and disloyalty, and nor can he defy Saxon law, lest he lose his own honour, Lord Wulfric informs them, with a slight wink of his eye, that when he is well, in order to honour our heroes, and thank them for saving his life not once, but twice, he will host a great celebration that will require all of his men-at-arms to cease pursuing any outlaws and attend for the duration. He assures them that anyone who returns to their homes and does not commit any further crimes will be forgiven. He also tells them that, although he cannot lower the taxes, and nor can he refuse to pay them, he will have additional supplies from his own personal provisions, meat from his own huntsmen, and crops taken from his own personal fields made available to the peasantry to lighten their burden. With a knowing smile and looking at Haresh's cloaked apprentice, Wulfric passes back the sack containing the bread and tells them that the sack will be his first contribution to lightening the tax load, and that Haresh's apprentice should return to his home. 2 days pass, and Lord Wulfric is much recovered thanks to the tender ministrations of Azuchi and his medical know-how. True to his word, he holds a great feast throughout the village that sees the flamboyant Captain Benito seemingly trying to bed every woman in the village. Even the death priest Haresh gets into the spirit of the celebration, relishing the chance to soak up a foreign culture. After the celebration has concluded, Lord Wulfric gathers the heroes to him and tells them that he would value their wise counsel. His interrogators have spoken to Anlaf and verified what Kaelwyn had told them. It appears that the Regent wants him dead for some reason. Perhaps it is because I am loyal to his brother and not to him, muses Lord Wulfric. The heroes tell Lord Wulfric that they are travelling to Winchester and that they still intend to do so. Perhaps they could arrange to negotiate with the Regent on his behalf. Thinking for a few moments, Wulfric says that if the heroes are willing, he will travel with them now his strength is recovered, and he will make his case in person, since it is the right and honourable thing to do. Agreeing, they all part company to sleep. Before this, Benito wanders through the village and, glancing at the squealing piglet tucked under his arm, and with thoughts of riding into battle mounted atop a huge betusked boar, he begins asking around the village to see if any of them have any experience of training riding beasts. He comes across a woman of the village who is happy to chat to him, and she tells him that most of the warriors in the city and most of the citizenry have experience of farming, but not of actually training riding beasts, since the warriors seldom use them in battle. They find it more honourable to march on foot, carrying their large axes and shields. However, she does talk about one of the commanders of the guards who spent some time in foreign lands and learnt a bit about riding beasts and how to train animals. She thinks for a few moments, and then she reveals that it is in fact Commander Adelred that she is referring to. Benito makes a mental note to discuss this with Commander Adelred and returns to the main hall where the others are settling down to sleep. However, Azuchi is troubled. He has been meditating on the future and has spoken to the ancestors of Saxony and of the Harcourt dynasty in particular. They have shown him a vision of a snow-covered battlefield, littered with the slain and drenched in blood. A king lies dead and a usurper seeks to consolidate his power. As he watches, some claim loyalty to the new king, while some remain loyal to the memory of the old king. Fire and war engulfs the kingdom of Saxony, and the tide of blood from the north flows southwards, drowning the kingdom. Still shaking slightly, Azuchi tells the others of his troubling vision. It seems clear that the death of the old king and his brother, the Regent's grab for power, will throw the nation into a civil war which may devastate the kingdom of Saxony. Still troubled, he drifts off into a fitless sleep. Well, that was my description of A Kingdom Without a King, Session 4 of the Serpent's Falls Fate Accelerated game. Many thanks to Foz, who played Captain Benito, Pigeon, who played Haresh Kamani, and Afro Dave, who played the Medicine Man from Stygia, Azuchi Komodo. We were missing Rob Benfer, who plays Gunnar Kron this time, so we made the decision to keep his character there, but just keep him in the background, and we hope to have him with us for the next session, which will be on the 20th of January 2014. Hopefully the video recording will be working slightly better then, and we hope that you'll all be watching. If you have any comments on this video, please leave them down below or hit up the Google Plus links. If you've enjoyed this video, please click on like, and I hope that you'll consider subscribing to this channel. Until next time, thank you very much all for watching.